Careful there, Captain Vega. Sergeant Holt chuckled as he leaned back against the tool cart. Don't trip over your clipboard. Wouldn't want you bruising your paperwork hand before your big test flight. Laughter rippled through the mechanics clustered around the UH-72 Lakota. One of them whistled. Yeah, Marisol, better double-check if the seat cushions are symmetrical too. Can't risk an off-center pillow bringing us down. Marisol Vega adjusted her cap and kept her expression even. She'd heard worse. At 33, she was a test pilot with over 1,800 logged hours, known for her meticulous eye and for calling out problems others ignored. That reputation made her an outsider here, too precise, too insistent, too unwilling to let good enough slide. Laugh it up, she said evenly, her voice carrying just enough to quiet the chuckles. But when you're strapped in at 700 feet and the bird decides it doesn't want to listen anymore, you'll wish somebody had checked more than the seat cushions. Chief Warrant Officer Randall Cross, her immediate superior, stepped forward, holding out the assignment folder. His tone was sharp, controlled. Captain Vega, you've been tasked with certifying this Lakota for readiness. Command wants it operational by 1600. No delays, no overanalysis. Just take it up, run the cycle, and sign the damn papers. Marisol opened the folder and scanned the maintenance logs. Her brow furrowed. Too many signatures jammed into too little time. Inspections marked complete in 20 minutes that normally took hours. And half the notes looked like copy-paste repeats from earlier reports. I'll need to run my own checks, she said, flipping through. Cross's jaw tightened. We don't have time for one of your productions, Vega. This is routine. Funny, Marisol murmured, crouching to examine the tail rotor. Every time someone calls something routine, I find something that isn't. Behind her, Holt whispered to another mechanic, loud enough for her to hear. She'll probably ground it again. Captain Clipboard strikes back. Marisol ignored them. She'd survived this long not by winning popularity contests, but by trusting her instincts. And right now, her instincts told her this aircraft had secrets no one wanted her to uncover. She stood, locked eyes with Cross, and said quietly, If I take her up today, it won't be because I trust your logs. It'll be because I want to find out who's lying. Marisol crouched by the Lakota's landing gear, running her fingers along the bolts. Some were new, still gleaming, but others had worn threads, inconsistent for an aircraft that was supposedly fresh from a maintenance cycle. She tapped one with her wrench, listening. The dull clink didn't match the sharper tone of the bolt beside it. Her frown deepened. Sergeant Holt smirked. What's she doing now, listening for ghosts? The younger mechanics chuckled again, but one of them, Corporal Dennis Alvarez, shifted uncomfortably. He avoided Marisol's eyes, busying himself with a toolbox. She noticed. Alvarez wasn't a talker, but he wasn't cruel like the others. He'd been at the base long enough to know when something smelled wrong. Marisol stood, brushing dust from her knees. This log says panel 4B was never opened, she said, tapping the paperwork. But the screws have fresh tool marks. Someone's lying. Cross pinched the bridge of his nose. Vega, enough. You've got 4 hours to prove this helicopter's airworthy. Stop hunting for phantoms and do your job. She closed the folder deliberately. My job is making sure this thing doesn't kill someone. Cross's glare was hard. Don't make this personal. But it was personal. Marisol remembered the funeral 2 years ago. Captain Jarrett, a test pilot like her, buried after his Black Hawk spiraled out of control. Official report. Pilot error. But Marisol had seen the wreckage herself. She'd found fractured wiring that didn't belong there. She'd filed her concerns, and the paperwork had vanished into silence. Now, as she scanned the Lakota's fuselage, she felt the same prickling unease. Alvarez finally spoke, voice low enough that only she caught it. Ma'am, don't trust what they gave you. Some of us saw the rush job. Parts came in from a supplier last week, wrong batch, but they used them anyway. Said no one would notice. Marisol's eyes narrowed. And you signed off on it? His jaw clenched. I didn't. But the paperwork shows I did. That told her everything. Forged signatures. Fabricated logs. She looked back at Cross, who was watching her too closely, almost daring her to keep pushing. She inhaled slowly, steadying herself. If I back down now, they win. If I fly this bird, I'll know the truth. Fine, she said at last. I'll take her up. The mechanics smirked again, convinced they'd rattled her into compliance. But Marisol wasn't flying because she trusted them. She was flying because she needed to prove, once and for all, what they were hiding. As she climbed into the cockpit, her last thought before powering the systems was the same silent promise she'd made years ago. If this helicopter fails, I'll make damn sure no one calls it pilot error. The Lakota's twin engines spooled to life, filling the hangar with a deep mechanical growl that sent a shiver down Marisol's spine. She'd flown dozens of aircraft, from battered trainers to fresh-off-the-line Black Hawks, and she knew how they were supposed to sound. This one was off. A slight stutter in the vibration, a lag in the RPM climb. Subtle, but wrong. She adjusted her headset. Control, this is Test Flight 29er. Engines running, requesting clearance for ascent. Test Flight 29er, you are cleared. Came the clipped voice of the tower. Maintain low altitude circuit, no deviations. Marisol arched an eyebrow. Normally she had free rein during test flights to push the aircraft's limits. Restricting her to a low circuit? That was unusual. Almost as if they didn't want her straying too far. Copy, she said flatly. The Lakota lifted, straining against her controls. The moment the wheels left the tarmac, the aircraft shuddered, a vibration rippling through the frame. Marisol tightened her grip on the cyclic, her jaw locking. Easy, girl, she whispered to the machine. At 400 feet, a warning light blinked red on her console. Hydraulic pressure dip. She tapped the gauge, the needle swung wildly, then froze. False reading? She thought. No, the hesitation in the pedals matched it. The system was really faltering. Test Flight 29er to control, she radioed, keeping her tone calm. Experiencing hydraulic fluctuation, request confirmation from ground telemetry. A pause crackled in her headset. Then, negative on fluctuation 29er. All readings nominal. Her stomach turned cold. They weren't even pretending to investigate. They were denying what she saw in front of her. Another light blinked to life, Alexis warned. Marisol flipped to backup, but the secondary panel flickered too, as if someone had deliberately crossed the wiring. Her heart pounded, but her hands moved with crisp precision. Years of training. Years of refusing to panic when the unexpected struck. Hydraulics unstable. Electrical interference. Continuing manual control, she reported. Be advised, these are not standard failures. Control came back instantly, almost too quickly. Test Flight 29er, maintain procedures. Repeat, this is pilot handling issue, not mechanical. The words chilled her. They were already framing the narrative. If she went down, it would be on her name. She gritted her teeth. Not today, she muttered. At 700 feet, the vibration worsened. The cyclic jerked under her hand as if the Lakota itself was fighting her. But Marisol Vega had not survived this long by letting machines dictate her fate. She cut the autopilot. She trusted herself, not their systems. The helicopter steadied barely. But as she scanned the panels, one detail froze her blood. Behind the warning lights, a faint smell of burnt insulation wafted up. She looked down and saw it, wires beneath the console, reversed in polarity. Not an accident. Not oversight. Sabotage. The Lakota bucked like a wild horse, the rotor wash tearing against the sky. Marisol's harness cut into her shoulders as the cyclic yanked sideways with a force that nearly dislocated her wrist. Control 29er, she shouted into the headset. Primary hydraulics failing, electrical crossfeed anomaly confirmed. Requesting emergency procedures. Her transmission cut out in a burst of static. Damn it, She slapped the comms panel. The breaker had tripped, but when she reached for the switch, sparks spat from the console, biting her fingers. The stink of scorched insulation grew sharper. The Lakota lurched into a roll. Altitude dropped, 680 feet. 640. Marisol's training snapped into place like muscle memory. She cut the power to the compromised channel, flipped to manual override, and pressed her boots hard against the pedals. The aircraft responded sluggishly, like wading through mud. They rigged it to fail. Every backup, every redundancy, compromised. A violent shudder rattled the cockpit. Warning lights strobed like angry eyes across her dashboard. HYD fail. Gen fail. AUX and warn. Her teeth clenched so hard her jaw ached. Not today! She forced the nose down slightly, entering auto-rotation, a maneuver every pilot trained for but prayed never to need. She could almost hear her old instructor's voice. Trust the rotor. Trade altitude for control. Ride it down. The Lakota's descent steadied. Air screamed past the cockpit, the altimeter winding down too fast for comfort. But she had control, fragile, tenuous, hers. Come on, girl, she whispered, coaxing the machine. Hold together just a little longer. At 300 feet, a fresh alarm blared, rotor RPM low. The aircraft began to shudder again, threatening to stall. She pushed the cyclic forward, bleeding off speed in exchange for lift, eyes locked on the landing yard below. The ground rushed up to meet her. Mechanics scattered, shouting as they realized she wasn't coming in for a gentle circuit. At 80 feet, Marisol flared hard. The helicopter groaned, skids biting the tarmac with a bone-jarring screech. For a breathless moment, the Lakota teetered. Then slammed down, bouncing once before settling. Silence, except for the ticking of cooling metal. Marisol exhaled shakily, sweat dripping down her temple. Her hands still gripped the cyclic like a vice. Slowly, she unclipped her harness and climbed out, every movement deliberate, every step echoing the fact she was alive. The hangar crew stared, wide-eyed. Sergeant Holt muttered, "Holy hell!" Marisol reached into the cockpit, yanked free a scorched wire cluster, and held it high. The insulation was blackened, the connections reversed. Her voice carried across the stunned hangar. This wasn't pilot error. This was intentional. Boots pounded across the tarmac as ground crew rushed toward the downed Lakota. A few mechanics looked relieved she'd survived. Others looked nervous. Eyes darting, lips pressed tight, as though her survival complicated things they'd expected to resolve themselves. Chief Cross arrived at a jog, face red and jaw clenched. "Captain Vega! What the hell was that stunt?" Marisol wiped sweat from her forehead, still holding the scorched wiring harness in her gloved hand. "A stunt?" she snapped. "That was an aircraft failure waiting to kill someone. Look." She thrust the wires at him. "Cross polarity. Burned insulation. This didn't happen by accident." Cross didn't take the wires. He glanced at the ring of mechanics, then barked. "Secure the aircraft. No one touches it until I say." Sergeant Holt frowned. "Sir, shouldn't safety?" Cross's glare cut him off cold. "Until I say." Marisol's chest tightened. This wasn't procedure. After any emergency landing, the bird should be stripped and logged, every detail recorded. Instead, Cross was locking it down. She jabbed a finger at him. "With all due respect, Chief, you don't get to bury this. I need to file an incident report immediately. Standard protocol." Cross stepped in close, his voice dropping low so only she could hear. "Protocol is what I say it is. You'll hand over your flight recorder, your headset, and your notes. Then you're done for the day. Understood?" Her pulse thudded in her ears. "You want me to not file a report?" "Exactly." His eyes flicked to the wire bundle in her hand. "And you'll put that back where you found it." The audacity made her laugh bitterly. "You think I'm just going to hand you the evidence?" Cross's expression hardened into something she hadn't seen before, not annoyance, but warning. "You've been a thorn for too long, Vega. People upstairs are tired of your crusades. Don't make this the hill you die on. For a moment, silence hung between them, heavy and sharp. Then Alvarez, the quiet mechanic from earlier, stepped forward. His voice shook, but he spoke anyway. Sir, she's right. That wiring didn't look factory. Someone rigged it. Cross rounded on him. You're out of line, Corporal! But the damage was done. A few others exchanged uncertain looks. Doubt had been planted. Marisol seized it. She lifted her chin, voice clear enough for all to hear. I nearly died up there. Next time it'll be one of you. And when that happens, don't you dare call it pilot error. Cross's eyes blazed, but he couldn't say more with the crowd watching. Instead, he turned on his heel. Everyone back to work. Captain Vega, you're relieved until further notice. As he strode off, Marisol's grip on the wires tightened. They wanted this buried. Which meant she had just uncovered something worth killing for. The hangar emptied slowly, the mechanics dispersing under Cross's barked orders. Conversations died mid-sentence the moment he glanced their way. Within minutes, the Lakota sat alone in the center of the bay, chained and taped off like some untouchable relic. Marisol stood just outside the cordon, helmet tucked under her arm, the burned wire bundle still hidden against her side. Sweat had dried on her flight suit, leaving salt stains on the fabric. Every muscle in her body still hummed from the crash landing. Captain? She turned. Alvarez lingered a few paces back, hands shoved deep in his coveralls, eyes flicking nervously toward the office where Cross had disappeared. You've got guts, Marisol said. Speaking up like that. Alvarez swallowed hard. Probably just signed my career away. Or your life, she muttered. He hesitated, then leaned closer. You weren't wrong. That wiring wasn't standard issue. I've been around these birds long enough. I know when something's been tampered with. But you can't call it sabotage without proof. They'll bury you before you can get it out. Marisol held up the scorched wires. I've got proof. Not enough. His voice dropped to a whisper. By now, they're scrubbing the diagnostics. By morning, the official record will say your flight was flawless. She clenched her jaw. Of course. With the telemetry under their control, the official story could be anything they wanted. Alvarez shifted, glancing around to be sure they were alone. Look, I don't know what you did to piss Cross off, but I've seen him shut down complaints before. Quiet transfers, broken careers. You should walk away before. Before what? She cut him off sharply. Before they pin a crash on me? Before they kill another pilot and call it error? Alvarez exhaled through his nose, torn between fear and conscience. Finally, he muttered, If you're serious about exposing this, there's a way. The Lakota's black box isn't stored where they think it is. I know how to pull it before Cross's people wipe it. Marisol studied him carefully. He was young, cautious, the kind of man who avoided the line of fire. But his hands shook not from cowardice, from the weight of choosing sides. Why help me? She asked. He looked her dead in the eye, for the first time without flinching. Because next time, it won't be you in that cockpit. It'll be one of us. The hangar lights dimmed as night cycle kicked in. Shadows lengthened across the taped-off helicopter. Marisol tucked the wire bundle into her flight vest and nodded once. Then we do it tonight. Alvarez blinked. Tonight? Before they erase everything. Her voice was steel. You in or not? His throat worked, but he gave the smallest of nods. I'm in. The base settled into its nighttime rhythm, floodlights humming over the motor pool, the distant drone of generators, boots crunching gravel during security rotations. Inside the hangar, the world shrank to echoes and shadows. Marisol slipped through a side access door, Alvarez close behind. Both wore dark fatigues, coveralls zipped high to hide their name tags. The air smelled faintly of grease and solvent, the scent of machinery at rest. Alvarez carried a slim toolkit, the kind every mechanic kept tucked in their locker. Marisol carried nothing but resolve, and the burned wire bundle pressed tight against her chest like contraband. You're sure you know where it is? She whispered. Alvarez nodded once. Flight data's routed to the maintenance recorder behind the avionics bay. Cross's guys will think it's secured in the central system, but… He tapped his temple. Old birds like these still keep secrets in their bones. The Lakota loomed ahead, chained down like a prisoner, yellow caution tape fluttering faintly in the draft. Its windows caught the floodlights and reflected them back in pale, accusing glints. They ducked under the tape. The metal skin of the helicopter was still warm beneath Marisol's palm. Her pulse quickened. This machine had almost killed her hours ago, yet here she was, crawling back to it like some unfinished duel. Alvarez crouched near the avionics panel, sliding his tools free with quiet clicks. He worked quickly, his hands sure despite the tension in his jaw. Screws clinked softly as he set them aside. Marisol kept watch, eyes scanning the hangar. Every creak of settling beams sounded like footsteps. Every hum of distant machinery pressed tight against her nerves. Almost there, Alvarez breathed. She risked a glance down. Wires and boards gleamed beneath his hands. He tugged gently, then pulled free a slim black module no larger than a paperback book. There, he said, holding it up. The maintenance recorder. Untouched. Relief surged through her. That's it. That has the flight data? All of it. Raw. Unedited. His voice was steadier now. If someone tampered with the systems, this will show it. Marisol allowed herself a thin smile. But before she could answer, a sound froze them both. A metallic clang. Not from the hangar settling. Not from their tools. From the mezzanine above. Marisol's head snapped up. A shadow moved against the catwalk railing, gone in a blink. She whispered, sharp and low. We're not alone. Alvarez stuffed the recorder into his coverall pocket, face pale. From somewhere high above, a voice carried down, flat, cold, certain. You should have listened to Cross. The voice echoed down from the catwalk, followed by the slow crunch of boots on steel grating. A figure stepped into the light, one of Cross's senior techs, a broad man with sleeves rolled up, face unreadable. Not a guard, not a cop. Just another mechanic told to do a job. Marisol raised her chin. So this is how it is? You don't even try to cover it up anymore. The man shrugged, but his hand dipped to his belt. A wrench, heavy enough to break bones. Orders are orders. You two walk out with that recorder, your careers are over. Or worse. Alvarez shifted beside her, frozen between fear and fight. Marisol, though, felt a calm settle in. She'd already risked her life once today. Doing it again felt strangely easy. You know what's on this recorder? She asked, voice ringing through the empty hangar. Proof that someone's trying to kill us. Proof they'll keep killing until it's convenient to stop. The man hesitated, just long enough. Marisol stepped forward, putting herself between him and Alvarez. Her voice sharpened like a blade. Go ahead. Take your swing. But the moment you do, everyone will know what you're protecting. The man's grip tightened, then faltered. His eyes flicked toward Alvarez, then to the dark windows where security lights shone in the distance. For a heartbeat, the weight of orders warred with the risk of exposure. Finally, he cursed under his breath and backed away. You didn't hear this from me, Captain, but they're not just after you. The whole damn program is dirty. He disappeared into the shadows, leaving the echo of his boots fading into silence. Alvarez exhaled hard, trembling as he clutched the recorder. We're dead the moment they find out we still have this. Marisol placed a steady hand on his shoulder. Her eyes burned with quiet fire. Then we don't hide it, she said. We shine a light so bright they can't bury it. Outside, the night air pressed cool against their faces as they stepped into the open. The recorder was heavy in Alvarez's hands, but to Marisol it felt lighter than air. For the first time in months, the truth wasn't trapped inside her. It was real, tangible, and it was going to bring the whole rotten structure crashing down.